Now, eventually, I downloaded a new software program last night and yesterday and got it all sorted. And there's just some jumping through some hoops. So I won't do like an official. Ooh, that's a bit weird. I won't do an official intro to this one, but I think maybe next time we do.
Okay.
And some of the shows that I've seen, the way they do it is they literally just take 5-10 seconds onto the next, and then we're kind of like bang into it. So I'm sure we'll find our way. Well, welcome. So
Okay.
so look, cameras, the microphones, everything you're hearing in the room is not on the live feed, all right? So that you cannot hear. This is just so that we can hear, are we fading away? Are we too, or are we good? If it's too loud, just adjust your volume there, and we'll be off to the races. So what was the first subject that we were gonna cover?
How do we decompress and prepare for the new school year?
Yeah. Do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Offer
David.
So recently we received our schedules, which I'm always excited about to see, where my classes are, how many students I have, and things like that. And I'm very old school. I immediately purchased a grade book.
Oh, you still do it by hand?
I still do it by hand. I might be the only one.
Where did you get it?
I had to get it on Amazon because they don't have any stores anymore. I used to get it at Boslin's, but Boslin's closed down. So I purchased one.
You were the last customer.
Yeah, but it looked nice. It looks like it's for like kindergarten teacher, but I was like, it's fine. And then the first thing I did was I wrote all the kids' names for each different period, and I wrote down their class rank. I have because I teach 5 honors English classes, English 3. I wound up having about 85% of the students are girls. So every year I have it over.
Why do you think that is, if you don't mind me asking?
I think it's because it's English is one, and the boys tend to gravitate more towards the sciences and the maths. But I don't really know. I can't be definitive about that, but it seems to be the case. Year in.
Well,
and
it's
year
funny,
out.
if I can jump in here for a second. Whenever I ask a class, raise your hand if you consider yourself a reader, it's almost invariably just the ladies raising their hands. A lot of the young guys don't describe themselves as readers for some reason.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah. But also reading now becomes a technical thing. I think everyone's online reading. I don't know if they count that as reading or not, but so getting back to it, I kind of get into that. That's the line that means school starting when I get that information and I get that schedule and I start calling people. What's your off period? I got a text message immediately before I even knew that the schedules were up. What's your off periods? And then we look for the common time, and it starts getting exciting again for me. I look forward to the new year. I look forward to the new students, teaching the lessons that I enjoy teaching. And getting everything ready. That's why once I get that, I really get that feeling. I don't get the feeling of I have to get every last day out of the summer kind of thing that I think some other people do, but that's just me. I get excited in preparation for the new year, but I still try to get some things done that I find either relaxing or productive, because I know that once the school year starts, I'm not going to have that time. So whether it's spending time with my kids or doing some work on the house, it's just, I do decompress doing those things because it's time, in my opinion, it's time well spent. Either one of those. Obviously, ideally, you want to spend more time with the kids, but I do a lot of the house stuff for the kids so that they can,
Like
play more. And
working on the house does not sound like decompressing.
No.
But like painting, I find it to be therapeutic. Even though I'm not painting like a mural or something, I'm painting a room like a blue color. but I that's that. It's alone time. I'm doing everything by myself, and I talk to myself, and I just.
There's nothing wrong with that, is there?
No, I hope not. You'll have to go to Mello on that and see is there a section on that.
That could be new ASMRs.
Just, yeah, just talking to yourself. It's just nothing. It's just talk, and then you just hear yourself.
So ignore me as I adjust many of the parameters as we record. Some of us are a bit bright. I need to adjust the color and this and that. So yeah. So if I'm not fully present, that's just because I'm playing with the buttons.
Yeah. That's basically it for me. Like I said, it is decompressing for me only because I get bothered when I'm not productive. Like I can't just sit and do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I have to move things forward and progress, whether it's, helping the kids do something, or if it's setting things up for the kids to have space to play or do something in the future. I feel much better about that. So I'll once I get back to school, then it'll be, I'm glad I got the basement finished so that the kids can play down there and I can hang out down there with them, and I don't have to worry about staying up all night doing those things.
Fair.
Sure.
Oh, it's my turn.
If you like, sure.
Relaxation and decompression is a little bit difficult for me because I never turn off. It doesn't really work.
Especially
well
at this
for
time,
me.
right?
The whole idea of going back to school, again, talk about a little anxiety provoking, just because you want to make sure that you're ready to go and that you're mentally prepared to do whatever it is that you need to do. I'm a big gym person, so I spend a lot of time at CrossFit, so I guess that could be considered a little decompressing. If at 5:15 a.m.
Yeah,
that
that's
counts
the part
as
that doesn't work for me.
decompressing. So yeah, just working out, and now almost 1-year-old, so letting him run around and hoping that he doesn't fall. I spend a lot of time doing that. But as far as finding relaxation, we actually take a 2-week trip for North Carolina, and that's kind of our get ready for the school year, spend time with family, don't worry about anything, don't work or think about it. And now it's like we're back and it's time to go, and I have to figure it out. So that's pretty much what I do. There's nothing else. I'm not painting rooms and enjoying it and spending alone time like that. If
Have to rethink
anything, I'm
that.
probably making it worse for my husband, because I'm like, what can we do to the house? What can you do to the house? So for me, it's just using the gym and just kind of amping up for the school year.
Well, now this is going to sound fraudulent because my decompressing is really a combination of the two. I'm very big on getting stuff done around the house, especially this part of the summer when I kind of assess what I had planned in June to get done and what really did get done. And I try to squeeze it down. And I do love going to the gym. I don't probably approach it with the enthusiasm that you do, Alima. But I do love the idea of just going somewhere and having that mental decompression. Like the weights, the machines, they don't judge you. They're just always the same, irrespective of what else is going on. And I kind of like that. I kind of like the idea that it's just yourself and the inanimate objects, and you can kind of, give your mind a break a little bit when you're in the gym, which is nice. And I do get that still a little bit of that queasy feeling the first week of school, after all these years, the idea that, okay, here we go again. New school year, what's this going to bring? I do like it a lot, but I get a little amped up. I mean, I get a little, anxious about it when it first starts. I do.
Yeah, I again, before you there's so much going on for the first show, and I'm glad this isn't the first official show. I'm very aware that the Alima's shining like a bright star
I'm a
over
star.
there. Dave's in the dark over here.
That's fine, thanks.
And
Come out of the
so
gutter.
all these little technical things, but I'll tell you, every single year that school comes around, I do not want to go back. And it's just anxiety. You have a couple of rough years as you're training to become the best teacher, especially if you care,
Sure.
and you get a couple of knocks here and there over the years, and you're not trying to ruin anyone's life, but those those moments stick with you, and you're trying to improve yourself, so you know that's coming up, and you get a little in the hallway. Oh, you wait till next year. You got someone's coming, and you're like, oh, don't tell me. All right, tell me what's coming. You know, so you get little nudges and little heads up, and it is. And we're talking about, prior to recording this, about what to say and what not to say, and of course I open with you know, so it's you end up in these situations that, you know, I always have a bit of an issue with anxiety. So a couple of years ago I started meditating. All this summer I have not meditated at all. I've been so busy, and my wife's let me put all this work and effort into the house, into the studio, and what have you. So I just decided, as I was telling you, that I put some time and effort back into the house. Well, the beginning of every summer is usually when I get my health back on track. Type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, hypertension, like all that stuff. I've heard the words before, ticking time bomb, from a doctor. I don't believe I'm anywhere near that bad anymore, but it's I haven't put in the time this summer to look after myself. I've been constantly doing. So this year is going to be a new concept for me, which is, you know, keeping tabs of blood pressure, looking after myself daily, weekly, you know, doing that old SEL stuff myself, practicing what I preach. Usually I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I will be again soon, because that's what saves me, truly. 4 o'clock, meditate from 4 to 5.
What time do you go to bed? 4 o'clock in the morning?
like 9:30.
Okay, yeah.
So, but ideally I would be going to bed at 9. And I found that the meditation also allows me to eat worse, because if I take away the meditation, then I feel it. It's not an excuse to eat worse, but I found.
Right.
Oh, well. But what I found is that when I do meditate and I take time for myself, is that it skews the results of what I'm putting into my body, and you know, be that mentally, nutritionally, and what have you. So yeah, you know, this year is going to be very different. So it's going to be a refocusing on myself while navigating again, you know, through the beginning of just the anxiety that usually kicks in. And when I get into it, I'm fine. You know, a week or two in, I'm in teacher mode, and you know.
But it's like that
bring it.
Go time athlete thing. Like,
Yeah.
you're an athlete, you have the nerves leading up to the game, like it's jump ball, and then it's jump ball, and it's go time.
Right.
And you turn it
Perfect
on and you're
analogy.
ready to go.
You should be a teacher. That was a great analogy. Yeah.
Well, I give you credit for saying, you know, you're going to focus on yourself. That's always a big challenge, maybe for all of us. I know for myself, you know, I always think about on the airplane, when they say, you know, in an event of an emergency, the oxygen mask will drop, and you put the one on yourself first before taking care of it.
Oh, dude, I'd be grabbing your mask in that instance. Where's Dave's mask? Where's Dave's mask?
But I always think, you know, all right, I get why they're saying that, but it's a very difficult concept. I think being a teacher, being a parent, you know, all of these different roles that we play, you don't always think of yourself first. It's usually like, you know, I'm not gonna be first. I'll be last. And what are the effects of that? And do we convince ourselves the best way to be is selfless and not to be selfish? It's difficult. I mean, I always hear people say that, and I don't think I've ever really done that on a personal level. I don't think that's a good thing. But
well, I think you can take care of yourself and still be selfless. I don't think that they're, mutually exclusive. I know what you're saying. I think that's one of the things that changed about you when you become a parent. And even if you aren't a parent, when you're in class, you kind of are to 25 kids. It is, I think, difficult to sort out when you should be focusing on yourself and when you have to take the back seat to everybody else, whether it's your own children or the students in the class.
I think it's hard to navigate though. Like I do
Yeah.
agree, and I think that I had that trouble coming from the classroom. I mean, I can remember like we were newly engaged and I was sitting behind my husband grading papers like frivolously, and he was
Mhm.
watching something. He was like, "Ah, did you see that?" I'm like, "No, I'm reading this essay. I missed it all." And I
Yeah.
think of so many moments that I missed because I was so focused on trying to get things done for the kids, for the kids, for the kids. And I'm not talking about I waited a week to grade them. I'm talking I got the essays today.
Yeah.
I'm grading them today
That's
because
me.
they need to
Yeah.
be done. And I never took the time to just like sit back and be like, it's okay. They'll get to them. Like I never got to that point.
Yeah, I have that issue of like that checklist, and once I assign something and it comes back, I'm like, I have to get that done. I don't want that hanging over me. I can't get things, I can't do other things with that kind of sitting in the background. And even right now, I have a couple of things that I've been putting off doing that I just keep, every day I think about it. And I'm like, I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to do this. And until I get those things accomplished, it's
Do you
going
feel
to be
like
on my way.
the people around you then expect more from you when you set that? It sounds like you set that pace.
Yeah.
Like if I was one of your students, I would be thinking, well, Mr. Ritchie turns this out. I wrote it today. I should expect that
Yeah.
grade back tomorrow.
I feel probably almost everyone in my life to a certain extent has that.
Really?
Where
Wow.
it's
So
probably
that now
like-
I understand you about that whole selfless and self. No, I
Just
really
because
don't.
I think even with the house, it's like, and it's not a knock on my wife, but it's more, it's kind of like the idea
Careful.
of
It's not a, yeah.
when you do certain things,
Yeah.
that
Sure.
becomes your role.
Tolima.
Yeah.
That's the expectation. Like
Right.
you set the bar
Right.
high.
And that's I think, when it comes to like if I take on a task, like I'm gonna plant, the garden or whatever it is,
Mhm.
I'm gonna take care of the shrubs. That's now my job. So anytime shrubs come into play, it's me.
Well, I think
You know,
in a way, though, professionally, do you feel like, wait a second, I've set this pace for myself, and now I can't change it because I know you hit hard, I really do, in the classroom. And do you ever regret those expectations being very high?
no, not at all.
Wow.
I
Good for you.
I love being like that.
Right.
And I love that the kids come
They-
in
and
and
they
they're
know what
scared
they're
and
getting
like, "Oh,
into,
man,
and
it's going to be
They
intimidating. and-
realize that.
Yeah, I know it was the same way with you. Like they had to leave.
Well, if you don't mind me asking, do you feel that you're setting this pace? Hey, I work hard, and I'm going to ask you to work hard too. Is that what it is?
I think that's what it always was for me. Like that was what I hoped for. Like that they
Mhm.
would see me grinding and that they would follow
Mimic
suit.
that.
But it didn't always work
No,
out
it
that
doesn't.
way.
It doesn't.
No,
I
no.
do feel it's kind of like the work smart, not hard. But you work a certain way, and I feel like it's something the same way in the classroom. It's one of the biggest issues I have is that what they call like wait time. It's like I have a high energy, and I'm
Mhm.
like, what do you think that means? And then they don't answer, and then it becomes a habit of they know I'll bail them out.
Oh,
So
I
they're
see.
just not going to ever
Right.
answer. Like you
Right.
have to sit back and you have to force them into a
Now, at
position.
that point, are you thinking there's so many other things I got to cover today? I don't
And
have all day.
That's what's difficult. That is the difficult part of being
Mhm.
able to scale back. And I think this past year, with the pandemic and kind of shorter classes, you were kind of forced into saying, I have 28 minutes because we had a half day
Sure.
schedule that I can't accomplish what I normally would. I'm not going to cover all the material I normally would in a given year. So let me just manage this one task over the course of this day and kind of tinker with things a little bit.
Now, how do you make that clear to the students that this is the pace at which I perform, and this is? Do you let them know? We were just talking about the first day of school. Do you let them know that the first week of school, like, hey, I don't know what you're used to,
Oh, I
but
see.
in this domain, this is how we operate. I mean,
Yeah,
is that how you operate?
let me put the camera on me right for a second. So,
Like
how you
it.
doing? This is my better side.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting that the first couple of weeks, the first couple of weeks in school is really laying down some of the law
Hmm.
and the rules and the lay of the land and what to expect. And Mr. Jones isn't liked very much the first few weeks. Then then they actually see that I'm actually quite a bit of a softie, and but I expect and I grade hard. So that was actually the toughest thing for the last couple of years, because there was all of this disengagement and non-interaction. I was looking at a lot of work saying, I think this is the best that this student can give me right now. And whereas before it might have been a D or an F, or given some students a 0, you know, um, I'd had to be like a C or a C minus, but they're doing a lot better in my class, and I just had to be, because I just see them for whatever reason, and hence why I started creating Mellow years ago, but not knowing that this was what it was. I didn't know it was going to turn into this.
Right.
The website, the possible app that hopefully someday it will become. But it's just giving them the tools to. I was watching these kids fail left and right, and in my head, I was just thinking to myself, why? What's going on?
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a tough time, but I didn't relate it. But the thing is, they were legitimately going through stuff. It's not half the class just failing because they want to, or they don't want to put an effort. So obviously it's something very legit, and it's something that just because I'm older, that I'm not connecting the dots. So it took having that conversation, and I know the conversation's kind of going a bit, but it just is trying to make sense of all this craziness that's going on right now, and what can be done to make it better, or alleviate the issues that are happening. I think we all know teachers possibly that are just going to be, well, it is what it is. It doesn't matter if it's COVID or not COVID, whether we're quarantining or not. I expect ABC. If it's not done, you're going to get a 0, and there's just no leeway given. And I think that's a big part of the problem as well. But
that
the
was one
teachers,
of the biggest issues last year, was just not knowing. Every teacher almost had a different level of expectation based on the pandemic. So you'd have some teachers who were just get a couple things done, you'll get 100, and the kid just winds up with an A for doing very little. And then other teachers who, like you said, just had, these are my expectations, I don't care about a pandemic, full steam ahead.
and that just compounded their issues. And then I'm sure you ended up seeing them.
So, but again, don't forget I was out with a baby, so I missed a large portion of the year. So
Yeah.
it was coming back to it and seeing that the expectations weren't the same around the
Right.
board. But for the kids, it's like, well, this teacher's doing this, and
Sure.
you're expecting me to hand everything in on time. Why is that? And not understanding that that's just, we didn't have an overall rule of how things were going to be taken care of.
I think a lot of us were going, how are they doing it? Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to do the same thing.
Sure.
It was the blind leading the blind oftentimes, because we didn't really know the best way to approach it. But I think a lot of us, again, coming back to the SEL, the social emotional learning, I think it would be good maybe next time if because that would have been a great point to discuss, that you're in guidance, that you do the AP, that now you've got your new, so
Right.
it would show a little bit more. But I think we'll do that live next week. yeah, it's
I mean, how can teachers, irrespective of the COVID situation, how can teachers agree on a level of rigor, a level of difficulty, a level of expectation? Now, if you're the student, you have to shift gears all the time.
Right.
My third period teacher, he's pretty chill.
Mm-hmm.
He lets you hand in things whenever, he's very, understanding. My fourth period teacher, she hits hard and her expectations are always high level because they want the best for me. And then I got to shift gears again, sixth period with somebody else who's maybe middle ground somewhere. I mean, how can we get around that as teachers?
The students, the students are very, intelligent in figuring out that type of information. So what I've noticed is how the students who have the teachers who they view as like the toughest
Mm-hmm.
will usually prioritize the work for that class.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you are more lenient, they'll usually wait to do your work later, if they do it at all, and then have an excuse or just not do it or make it up late if you're going to take it, whatever it is. So it becomes a balancing act of you don't want to be too tough on them, but you also don't want to be the last, on that list of
Right.
priorities.
The nice guy that never
Especially
gets,
from an English teacher.
I'll take it at the very
Yeah,
end.
whenever
ready
you
to
get a
do
chance.
in an hour.
Exactly.
Right.
Send it to
And then
me.
you're setting
Right.
yourself up for a disaster because now you keep changing the expectation of, well, if that kid's not doing it on time, I'm not doing it on time.
Right.
And then
Mhm.
now you've lost everybody, and then it's very difficult to get back, if not impossible to get it back at that point. So I try to stay firm from the beginning, but then especially with English, it's very difficult because English assignments can be more time consuming because if
Mhm.
there's reading involved and things like that. So they usually will just wait till the end for that, or just look things up online and all that all the shortcuts they could try to take on that. But that's not what the objective is. So it becomes very challenging to walk that line.
You got me thinking too, as a teacher, it's also very challenging to change your reputation. If you start out, I know when I first started teaching, I wanted everyone to like me and I was very accommodating. And I overheard somebody one time say, "Oh, yeah, I had him. Oh, my God, he's so easy." And then I realized, wait, this kid is a freshman. I'm going to have to wait 4 years for this to come out in the wash. You know what I mean? I need for no one on this campus to know that I was an easy teacher. And it really did take several years for me to kind of gravitate to the level of expectation that I wanted from my class, because the word gets out on the street. The students talk. They know, well, Richie's this, or Jones is this, or Putup is this way. It's really difficult to change your reputation among the students.
Yeah.
I think that again, when I was in the classroom, it was just different because I had creative writing. So it was English 1 and creative writing where I could have that leniency in creative writing. There were older kids, and it was like, all right, if you're going to hand something in late, I need you to get up in front of the class and you tell us like what's going on and what's happening. And it opened up some room for us to talk about real life situations, because it was like, I really do have something going on and I'd love to talk about it. So it was like, again, I think that with the pandemic, people realized that there are other ways to navigate, like how much the workload and when you can accept things. And maybe some people that have honors classes can't do that, right? Because the bar is higher. But I think that it did change the perspective of others who were maybe more lenient and like, it doesn't always have to be that way. So.
Yeah, I'm finding that I'm constantly having to reset the bar throughout the year, and I have several big chats with the class throughout the year. And usually it's kind of not a telling off, but just kind of a waking up, and letting them know I hate hearing myself talk at that point, because I'm talking about the real world, that comes up once or twice, in the real world. But yeah, it's whatever you can do to wake them up to what needs to be done. But in the same breath, like David was saying, about prioritizing, they only have so much. So if everyone's demanding, I think there is a way to have that rigor. And I think at the end of the day, you just need to let the grades kind of, in a normal year, let the grades do the talking. Last year was very SEL, social emotional learning focused. At least that's what it was coming from my supervisor. So, you know, that was nice to hear, because that's kind of my secret little, you know, secret menu for my class, is just some are taking care of ourselves and thinking about stuff that maybe we don't think about very often. Because a lot of us and a lot of the students are parenting someone else, or they're helping to raise their brothers, their sisters, and what have you. So yeah, it's you know, it's going to be a really interesting year ahead. The funny thing is, let's talk about segues, shall we?
Yeah.
Yeah, thinking about the year ahead.
Yeah.
What was one of the other topics?
Well, that kind of leads into the whole idea, because we were kind of getting into
Virtual versus
the virtual versus in-person learning, and you know, what are the benefits and the drawbacks to each. We all work at a school where we were in person, and the students had the option to be in person or virtual. Most of the students chose, especially in the higher grades, chose to go virtual only for the entire year. So most of the students at our school have not been to our school since March of, what was it, 2020?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is a big layoff, and you're talking about now having 2 graduating classes since then. So the school is going to be mainly comprised of students who have not been there in an actual school in a long time. And I am much more in favor of the in-person learning, just from an authenticity standpoint, from a logistical standpoint, to have the students sitting there, to get the feedback that's nonverbal. A head nod, eye contact is sometimes all you need. But just the authenticity of the assessments, for me, I need to know what the students are capable of doing. And too often, especially with teaching honors and AP students, cheating is the go-to.
Yeah.
And you cannot have a witch hunt for every single assignment, but you just
No.
know. You just know. It's
Sure.
just, they're not authentic.
Well, the other thing too is, for your legitimate student, at some point they put 2 and 2 together and
Right.
think, you know, I'm coming here every other day, and it just seems like the assessments land on the day that I'm in class and everybody else is at home. And it's that whole baseball thing about juicing. You know, everybody, you want to hit home runs, got to juice. You know, everybody else is hitting home runs. And you kind of feel for those students. You really do, because the system is forcing their hand.
Yep.
It's almost like you're a fool. You get to a point where you don't want to be made a fool. You know people that are getting over on assessments, and you think, what am I doing? Why am I doing this the legitimate way? You know, everybody else who's doing the illegitimate way is happy, and I got to be okay with my B minus.
Yeah, there's been a lot lost this last year, at least. Just the development, you know, at least with English, there's a lot of interactivity that you can ask from your students. But you know, in a shop class like mine, when I'm teaching graphic design or digital media, some 3D animation, and it's project based, it's hard to pull out a reaction from them. You know, a lot of them, they think that I'm talking, when those in class, they actually think I'm talking to those at home, or vice versa. And so I got to get a little bit belligerent. Guys, I just asked you a question. Come on, what's going on?
Right.
You know, I'll slap the desk, I'll clap my hands, and what have you, and just to get a response, but raise the energy in the room. But yeah, it's tough.
Well, you know, when I'm in these meetings, you know, when I'm in a professional development WebEx or a WebEx meeting, I consider myself a fairly outgoing person. I cannot tell you how many WebEx meetings I've been in that I refuse to say anything. I just want it to be over.
Yeah.
You know, I think, you know what, I'm just going to belabor a point that's already been made. I'm just going to make this WebEx meeting longer than it already is.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna just keep to myself.
there is that type of analyzing that I do, and
Mm.
you're kind of, you err on the side of caution, because what's going to happen is people are going to start looking at you as though, oh, you're the one,
Right.
you know.
This is a
And-
minute longer than it should have been because you said something.
Yeah. Oh, damn,
The eye
damn.
rolls that you just
Oh.
know are happening.
Oh,
Here goes the Ambrose. Good.
Yeah.
They're almost done. They're
In the
almost
private chatting, do
Yeah.
you believe this guy?
done.
I swear to God, if he says one more thing,
you know, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's a great conversation, but because you know all the eyes are on you, and the expectations are, yeah, I get it. So even from a teacher's standpoint,
well, let me ask you this: the student who, well, I'm not talking even about the student who's shy. How about that kind of bubble student that sometimes, in a regular classroom, would raise their hand or have a comment? We need to ask these students: did we lose you too? I mean, did you gravitate over to the other side of the bell curve, and now you used to talk once in a while in class, but with the WebEx and the chatting and the texting and the fear that somebody else in that meeting might say something that, of course, you don't know, that, because they're sending by text or by private chat. Is it that assumption that some students have that, well, if I say something, somebody else in this meeting will, unbeknownst to me, say something about me?
It's the virtual pushed all those kids in the middle
Mm-hmm.
to the shy side.
I would think so.
To not
Because-
saying anything.
Yeah,
That's-
Sure.
because there's no need. When the kid is in your classroom,
Mm-hmm.
you could just walk over to them and say something
Sure.
quietly
Mm-hmm.
and help them. Or it's so easy to get that kid because you could see the nonverbal response. of,
Huge.
They know it,
Right.
and they might have whispered it, and I heard it, and you can get them to get engaged and give them the confidence to maintain.
Mhm.
But the problem is, from a teaching perspective, if a kid is virtual and they're being quiet, you don't know why they're being quiet, and you don't necessarily want to call them out for being quiet.
Well, that was my
They
next
might
question.
they might not be turning on their camera because there's chaos at home.
Right.
Yeah.
They might not be turning on their microphone because there's kids screaming in the background.
Right.
yeah.
Well,
You
did
have no
guys find
idea.
yourself doing
And-
that?
But I can't. I don't want to call them out.
That's
for
what I
it.
mean.
So I say
Summer,
you
summer babysitting,
Right.
You know,
type it into the chat then, and then it
Did,
becomes.
did you find yourselves doing that, calling people out, or no?
um,
I mean, is that even appropriate? I found that,
generically, I would do it just as a whole, as a class.
but you wouldn't call a name.
No.
Would you? And
I may
that-
I may have, only if the person was acting inappropriately. So,
Mhm.
for example, someone was lying on the bed, computer upside down, feet in the air.
Right.
Everyone could see it. So, what's the point at this point in time? So, I just said, "Hey, come on."
But what if somebody didn't have their camera on?
Which most of them
and
wouldn't
you were
do, by
asked-
the way.
Most of them, yeah, most of them
refuse to
didn't.
put the
Right.
cameras
And
on.
you're asking a question about the reading. It's not a tough question. It's an academic question. You're not calling anybody out. You're saying, Joe, what did you think about?
I would do that from time to time.
What type of response did you typically get, if you don't mind me asking?
They didn't mind, but there were times where the kid wouldn't answer at all, and you just knew they weren't there.
Mhm.
Right.
And then you would find out that this was a habitual thing, and then you get to know, all right, this kid is just literally logging on,
Walking away.
and then they're not even
Sure.
near their computer for long periods of time. And then what would happen in some cases is that, you'd have I call in a girl, she wouldn't be there, and then another girl in the class would text her, he just called on you.
Yeah.
And then,
Mhm.
oh yeah, I was just I had to
Yeah.
go take the dog out real quick, and just come up with an excuse, and
Right.
you just know it's a lie.
Mhm.
But then, do you really want to get into it at that point
Yeah.
and have to deal with that?
Yeah, and even if you do get into it, are you going to achieve anything?
Right, but you get your principles. Then
Sure.
you're like, geez, like, can you
Mhm.
just? I'm trying to help you learn something. You just want a level of honesty at least.
Yeah.
Well,
But it's the issue is the integrity
Mhm.
and the morality when it comes to being truthful is at an all-time low. Like I just
Wow.
feel like in general, the students just do not, and
Wow.
it might be a whole societal thing at this point. They just do not care about lying and cheating.
Well, let me
and
ask you
just-
this:
just
is
doesn't
it
matter.
because I'm asking a lot of questions? I'm sorry.
We're
Is it
educating you.
because I know in my class last year I got a lot of this, the get out of jail free card that always worked. It wasn't a card; it was more like it was a passport
Test.
to say network
Oh,
issues.
oh.
That's all you had to say.
Yeah.
Network issues. I'm having network issues, and as a teacher, what do you do then? No,
Well,
you're not having network
You
issues.
can't do
that,
anything.
that actually gets into an area that I couldn't be teaching right now to answer that very specifically, because I got some great stories about that stuff. Sometimes I would just send them a link and say, and it would be a speed test link. I said, just send me the number.
Really?
Send me a screenshot of
diagnosing there.
yeah, send me a
That's
screenshot.
awesome.
That's
Send me a
fantastic.
screenshot
Right.
of,
We'll see how you're doing.
of the number that
Right.
you got, and then they would show me. And one time it was 15 megabits per second, very low.
Hmm.
And come to find out, she was in Puerto Rico.
Mhm.
I think I was told at one point, and
Right.
it was legit. She was allowed, but it totally, with all the emails we get sent,
Yeah.
and it's hard to keep track of
Who's where?
And then it hit
Especially when
me
you don't
like,
see them.
you're in Puerto Rico. Like,
Mhm.
It was probably an email from me.
Sorry. It probably no, but
She's in Puerto Rico.
so it shows like all of the and from a student that may or may not make it this year. So just very interesting, the scenarios, and wow, just what a stressful time it is just keeping up with it's like you're riding a horse. You're catching your food as you go, putting in your bag. You're getting the emails as well, like you're writing your. It's just absolutely unreal at times. If you fall behind in your job as a teacher, in keeping up with all the things that you're meant to be doing, once you get behind, that's it. So lesson plans for me. Sorry, Joe.
But
Promise
what
to
about
work on that this year.
But getting back to the original question of virtual versus in person, how many of those things would be made easier from having all in person? Like how many of those organizational issues were compounded by having virtual learning only? Were we expected to do more? Did we expect the students to do more? Like where did that land? Like how was it working even with the kids from a guidance
So
perspective?
from a counseling perspective, I mean, now a lot of even outside of schools have gone to sessions online, like because it's easier. You don't have to travel to get to the office. You don't have to do those things. And some clients enjoy it, but doing it with high school students who are usually unwilling to fully talk about things, and you have to kind of tug and pull to get them to do it. It's really hard to do.
Are they on a Zoom or is it through a phone call?
So again, we weren't allowed to do WebEx with the actual video at first, and then they actually transitioned it because again, how can you even get responses or read them if you don't have them on camera? So I think that again, the way that things began in the school year, I think that there wasn't a plan. So it was trying to figure it out as you went along and then changing things as they occurred. And I think that over time it became a little bit better. But again, still kids, it's hard to counsel a kid on a computer.
Are you expecting a big uptick in students coming into guidance this year?
Absolutely. Again, I think that a needs assessment is going to be something that's necessary because we don't know what type of trauma they've experienced as we go back to school. We don't know what their situation is, who's been affected, who lost someone to COVID, even though like as a counseling department, we do get emails, this student lost a person. But again, how many people weren't reported? How many kids didn't come to us and let us know what happened,
Actually, this week and the week after, I have 2 or 3 that are coming out, and I'm doing one-on-one interviews, and they're going into the section in the Mello app, and they're talking about people that they've lost in years past through different situations. So students, and people like us can go in and see, okay, what is normal in a situation like that? What can I expect to feel? You know,
Mm-hmm.
what are the stages of all of this? And just get some, as I used to say, from an earlier version of all of this, some hope, understanding, and guidance uh, about grief, about losing people, about hardships. So again, I'm fascinated by these stories, but it's going to be heartbreaking as well. Just listening to it, one guy lost his 14-year-old daughter, and I don't know the whole story, and that's going to be a tough one. But a great guy, and he's had his own personal demons as well. So I know like a lot of these students are going to be going through a lot of similar situations. So yeah, it's going to be.
And it's how do you teach them as an English teacher,
Mm-hmm.
as
Yeah.
a shop teacher, when you're trying to teach to the whole student? Like, it's not just about this content now, it's going to be about what they're feeling, and if there's a topic in the text that you're covering that's going to affect them based on what's occurred over the last
Right.
couple years. Like, it's going to be navigating so many things in this upcoming year and making sure that you have the resources to do it.
And dare I say, I think it's tougher to be a teacher because it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, that more and more responsibilities that are not your academic responsibilities are being put on you. You know, okay, teach this material, but also we've got to add to the other responsibilities you're going to have to be aware of, some very, very important things that you guys are talking about. SEL, I didn't know what SEL was 12 months ago.
Right.
And now it's such a big thing. And if I was back in the classroom, I'm not in the classroom anymore. I'd probably try to figure out, on that pie chart of what I've got to get done every week, how big is each slice, and how big, can we agree on how big each slice should be as professionals?
Yeah.
If you spend X amount of time, doing the human thing, and being sensitive to kids' emotions, can we assume that everyone else who's teaching English 3 has that same approach, and that you won't be criticized because, well, this guy's not covering enough of this academic material?
I've actually had my first instance this year of a parent rebelling against some of this SEL stuff.
Sure.
that my um, supervisor said, look, this is what it's not so much about the curriculum this year. Of course it was, it always is, but we're making sure the whole student is okay, a mental, emotional, as well as their academic, and their shop classes education is being fortified. But trying to think of the right word, but dare I do anything to kind of that might seem woo-woo from outside? A lot of this does seem so woo-woo, right? So that's why for me now to come at this, to lay down a solid foundation of science, of peer-reviewed, here's what we understand this does, to override any sort of naysayer that might not get the foundational truths of what self-care is really all about and what it can do for you. So yeah, those, I know there's more, and sometimes just the looks around the class, my ego has a hard enough time sometimes, teaching a subject. So to see someone go, and then they do their little rebellious kind of, and in my head I'm going, why I order? But I get it. I was once that kid as well. So and I'd say that, and I'd say, look, I see some of the smirks, I see some of I get it. I was once your age, but it's just a case of me gathering my senses, making sure I come up with the facts, approach it, do what I need to do, and then kind of move on.
Well, should each teacher determine how much time and effort they're going to be
No,
spending on this.
I think there needs to be a more concerted effort to understand what's happening in our society,
Mm-hmm.
and then take the proper steps to assist the students. You know, how many articles do you have to read where it says students now or teenagers now are more depressed than they've ever been? And everyone can always say, and I could say this to them as well, you know, I was 17 when I was your age, but we didn't grow up the same way they are. Like the social media,
Didn't we have it so easy?
I think the less technology, the better.
Oh my God.
How simple
We had
things
it.
were.
We had
playing, like,
no one to.
Sure.
The closest person we had to compare ourselves with was maybe a family member,
right, a sibling,
or someone down the
right,
street.
exactly. Yep, that's it.
You know.
And now they're comparing themselves to every other person in the world on a daily basis, multiple times a day, and influencers. There was no such thing as an influencer when we were younger, and you know, cell phones, all the technology that
The
we use
videos of
every
you
day.
that go up immediately. I would have been in so much trouble.
Right,
Right,
No,
right.
all of them.
Yeah,
Cut.
right. It was just never
No,
documented.
But
I
think
did a
about
lot of
that. I mean,
ridiculous
there's
things.
things
Yeah.
now. I mean, every day it comes out about a person who's in the public eye, who they're digging up things on from 10 years ago, and people are still, even adults, people much older are finding out, oh my gosh, those things, I didn't get away with those things and whatever, because there's something. So these
There's
students,
so many topics to talk about.
but this is their reality, though.
Yeah.
This is all they know. They don't know what it's like not to have a cell phone. They don't know what it's like not to have
Right.
social media. They don't know what it's like not to grow up with everything that they have. We can say, yeah, when I was in high school, there were no cell phones. I only played Doom on my computer and downloaded music,
Well, to go
on
back
Napster
even
or
further,
whatever.
and I think this is wider than even that we're talking about here. When I was a kid, we had no sense or no understanding of brand names of any kind.
Yeah.
There were three kinds of sneakers. You had Converse, Keds, and the ones I got were at the A&P, and they were hanging for $3 on a little rack, next to pantyhose. And they had like plastic bottoms. And we weren't poor. I mean, we were not. My father was a doctor.
Yeah.
We weren't poor, but it was just never a
Doctor.
consideration. It was
Wasn't
never
important.
consideration. Like, wow, don't show up in the $3 A&P sneakers.
Right.
You just did, and okay,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
Those are your sneakers. So I mean, I just think there's just so much pressure on these students today for their limited
But
resources. Ironically,
it's more of the world that they're seeing that we didn't really see,
hmm
and it's coming right to their doorstep every single day.
It's just
the first thing they look at.
exponential growth of technology, and
But it's all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
Is the problem. I mean,
It really is.
But everything that they see, even on a social media thing, it's look what's happening here and look what happened there, and it's the whole
It's all
world
shock
now
factor.
is what they're worried about. It's not like I'm worried about what's happening in my house
hmm
and with my family or with my friends. I'm worried about somebody in Afghanistan. I'm
Yes.
worried about
Sure.
somebody over here,
Yes.
and I'm worried about everybody, and I can't control any of it. And it's constant. And how, and getting back to the original point of, we need to be aware as teachers to find the balance between the SEL and the curriculum, and not, I think, overdo either one, but come to terms with it. And this is the difficult part as teachers. If you've taught a subject for many years, you have that. I was there last year. I know exactly where I need to be by this date, and by the end of the first trimester, I'm here. We need to kind of say, all right, maybe I don't get as much accomplished from a curricular standpoint, but I still need to find ways to teach the kid and get them to understand what's happening. And even if they don't cover, A through Z, they know A through M very well, and they're better for it. And because A through Z, the kid might learn very little. They might just, I don't care about A through Z at all.
Let me ask you this though, and I don't know the answer to this. That's why I'm asking you. What do you do?
47.
What do you do with the customer that doesn't buy in, who says, I'm a CPA, I went to the University of Virginia, and you know what? We didn't spend a minute on ASCL. What are we going to do with that customer?
The customer of parent?
Yes.
Well, again,
I mean, how do we sell them on this?
I think again you have to say, like, how is your child adjusting? Are you noticing anything? And then talk to the kid and see, because a lot of times the students will tell us things that they won't tell the parents.
So that's the thing. I also think a lot of teachers have been doing SEL for a long time
Yeah.
without knowing you're doing SEL. Think about how many kids may have come to you and told you they were having a bad day or something was going on at home, and you were the first line of defense for them to get the help that they need so you could direct them to someone like me.
That's it.
You know? So you see them on a day-to-day basis, and you can see their ebbs and flows. You can see when they change, you know something's not right, and you at least could shoot an email to a counselor and say, hey, saw this.
But that's what makes all of this much harder, is the fact that the lack of interaction and communication, we're not seeing that anymore. Like, I don't know my students. Half of my students could walk past me in the hallway this year. I wouldn't know that they're my student because I only see from here up. I don't get any verbal interaction, and most of them didn't come in anyway. So your loss.
You know what? But the scary part is that there are a lot of students who were successful virtually learning, right?
Yeah.
They found their success. Their grades were good, whether it was from a dishonest standpoint and they were doing whatever they needed to do to get the grade. But now it's going to be hard for those kids to come back. And what's that going to look like in your classroom in September?
Yeah.
When they come back and they're like, well, I did great last year when I was
Sure.
completely online. What's going on now?
It could have been just the teacher they had. It could have been a number of circumstances that allowed them to do well. And like, I'm really looking forward to giving them a piece of paper and having their
There's lines
computer
on
shut, and they're gonna have to take out this long.
What are these lines here for?
pencil-looking thing. And I'm gonna say, like, okay, here's your question.
That is
and-
always so telling, isn't it? When you get someone to write something
Yeah.
from their own mind within their own hand without any reference material.
Yep,
No
that's it.
spell check, no
and,
nothing.
and that's
Yeah.
that's what I want to know. And again, then I start thinking, like, as we're talking now, it's like, is that like cruel and unusual punishment to expect that, like, to ask them to do something that they have not had to do in over
Well,
a year.
I'm not sure it's cruel because as long as you're asking everyone to do
Oh, I'm doing it for everyone.
And
Yeah,
it
you do it
depends
for
on
everyone.
and the topic. This could be an easy way to integrate something that's SEL based, getting them to
Absolutely.
just write something, like
That's
come
it.
up with something and allow them to just write
To express.
about it, to express and to get it on paper. But the only thing you come up with then is, are you going to have to send me, 10 of your
Right,
15 students because of what they're writing?
But again,
at least we know.
Right, but I could always, like, my plan is to, with the Mello app, is to be able to utilize it with the students in order to analyze some of the characters in literature, and then by doing that also be reflecting on themselves and things like that as well. So they could be talking about, John Proctor and saying, I think this is, John Proctor's got a problem with this, and this is what caused him to go down this
I'm
path.
going to need a very big thesaurus and dictionary and access to the web to look up a lot of this
Or you
conversation.
can just do what I do and nod your head. Yes.
Something about a proctor.
But that's going to be the interesting thing, is that how are they going to operate when they can't use the computer, when they can't type it, when they can't proofread it, when they can't look up the answer, because their knee-jerk reaction, as would anybody over the last year and a half, would just be to look things up. And that's why, I feel like the in-person is very important, because the buck has to stop at some point. At some point, we need to know what they actually know, because the more they may be getting by doing well deceitfully, the more they're going to have to rely on that.
Well, getting back to your saying about being deceitful or duplicitous, I think that it's just too easy. And what you're talking about, it would be very difficult, right, with a blank piece of paper. I mean, it'd be impossible, I would say, to cheat. And I think that it's probably a good idea to gravitate back that way and just get genuine assessments, just some honest assessments.
I don't even
change.
want to use
Yeah.
the laptop at all. I just want
Sure.
to just sit there.
Yeah, I think going back to graphic design and not so much digital media, that kind of ebbs and flows each year and it morphs into something different. I was tasked with putting the curriculum together for digital media, and I did it, and I took my sweet time by accident. But even now, I wish it was something different than what it is, because this year we've brought out so many different. Oh, I thought that was you. I thought that was you agreeing.
What is that?
I heard.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I was going to say, Alima, just alternate your tones. But yeah. So this year, I forgot the train of thought. I think this year is going to be bringing it back to stricter. Yeah, I want everyone in class. See what I did there? But I want everyone in class, but obviously this pandemic is going to be what it's going to be, and we're just going to have to roll with the punches. And because we like playing by the rules and playing the game. So I don't know where that was going, but we sometimes like inside jokes amongst ourselves, but that was an inside joke with myself. That kind of anyway. So look, I mean, this has been an hour right there, and
Well,
it rolls and it flows without any problem.
we must be horribly entertaining. I can't believe it's been an hour.
Yeah.
I figured it was going around there. I or in my head.
I thought we
20
were about
minutes ago,
halfway done.
I was saying
I felt like
I cut out one of the topics in my head already.
Yeah.
See, and what are we, like two topics shy of 5? What do we do? 2
And I
or
feel
3?
like I don't even know if we really.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. I
But-
think we just scratched the surface of a couple of these.
But
Yeah.
but isn't that the beauty of all of this? We don't force it. We make it whatever it's going to be. It does have a natural ebb and flow and process of we're just kind of bouncing off of each other.
Well, again, we could always have 4 questions that are posted, and
Yeah.
then we just hit on the ones we can get to. Or,
Yeah,
and if they want
and that's it.
alternate information, they could write in, or they could
Sure.
do.
And look, some days we're not all going to be able to be here, and that's fine too. We don't want to make this mandatory. You are here. So
Dare I say, I think that went really well. I really do. I don't
it
think
really did. There was
I
a
don't think
couple
we were
times
in-
I wish I could just delete, but that's just me being self-critical.
but we didn't even get close to the edge as far as
No, that's fine.
saying
yeah.
something that, why did I say
Yeah,
that?
there's always a concern, right, when you're doing something like this, that you're either going to bite the hand that feeds you or
Are
say.
you still recording right now?
Well, yeah, let me. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to sort out a few of the bits and pieces next time. Lighting. I think I need to adjust the light so we
Can you
each got
see
our
me?
own little
I
light.
am so bright.
Yeah. But,
You look good, Alima.
But you are.
So bright.
But you are.
I got a real dark background over here.
I mean, you
Yeah.
can always come closer to me.
Well, we can
We'll
shuffle
have to
the
share that-
seats,
we'll have to
though.
share that.
We can mix the seats up.
As
Well-
we go, just like every 10 minutes, just rotate
Right.
one seat.
Yeah.
What happened there?